musky fishing can be a cruel, cruel sport. The lows are so low, they hurt so bad when you lose fish or you just don't get the chances you want. But the highs are so high. It's the highest form of fishing and excitement you can get in freshwater fishing that I know of, when everything goes right and you catch fish. And it's cruel in the sense that sometimes you only get one or two chances and you have to capitalize. And other days they seem like you're getting chances everywhere you go. And the day that I fished with Chad and John, we had multiple chances. We put multiple fish in the boat. It was one of those days where it felt like we couldn't do any wrong, even though we lost some fish, we lost some chances. We exceeded what you want to do on a musky trip. And when John wanted to come down and bring his wife Leanne, we were hoping obviously for a really good day, but you're hoping to get a couple chances. And this day, musky fishing was going to be cruel. We were only going to get a couple shots, and we had to really make those pay off. And luckily, John made the right calls at the right time with the right bait, and we were able to put together something that saved an otherwise dreadful day.
The most of while Leanne's not here. Hey, that's mine. I remember saying you could use that.
Possession is 9/10 of the law, Leanne.
You know what you should fish with?
What's that? I can't. It's locked up right now.
I got it welded on.
Yeah, you got it all. Yeah, come on, come on.
No. Fishing with John and his wife Leanne today. You hear it often on the channel. It's been an effing struggle. Fish are reluctant to come up. We're on our last two spots. You can see the old Death Star, the moon up in the back there. We're kind of in our sunset, moonrise. Finally got one to go on a manta. So we'll get it unhooked here and we'll have a quick look at it. What do you got there, John?
The old manta.
The old manta.
Classic, man.
And he had just had on, I'll slide over. So this is from 705 Musky, I believe that is Sean Howard, I believe. He had that big glide bait on and just had a follow. And I give him heck. I was like, why are you downsizing? And he's like, I don't think it's that much smaller. Cast out, it hit way out from the boat.
Yeah.
What are we thinking this is?
It's probably about
37, 38.
You
Probably
give it a stick there, huh?
Yeah.
I'll give it a quick measure. Right on.
turn it. Yeah, it's 38. It might even be 39-ish. Yeah, it's probably closer to 39.
Very nice.
Get up there, Leanne. Oh, you want to take a picture? Yeah. Ay. That's how you break wrists.
That's how you break wrists.
Actually, it's a skinny male. It's longer, but it's skinny.
Nice fish.
Good way to cap off the night.
Come on up, bud. Hurry up.
It was a pleasure fishing with you guys. John's become a friend of mine. It was awesome to be out here with his wife. So I'm going to sneak around the other side of him, see if we can get a release shot here. I'll just let you hold that.
Sure.
The screen might go off, but don't worry about it. It's still recording. He's ready.
Isn't that just beautiful how they'll just stay there like that? Hey.
That's cool.
Just. Right on.
Buddy.
Thanks a lot, Glenn. That was a grind today for sure.
That was a grind, but
A long day. It was a long day.
it's
but,
been a long day. It's been a grind, but it only takes one fish to make it. I'm just kind of at a loss for words because we talk about it grinding so much, and sometimes you just have to persevere and you have to stay out on the water and finish the day off. And we've talked about it a couple times today that we have friends, we know people that when it gets tough, you go walleye fishing, you go do something else. But real musky guys,
Don't bring walleye gear in the boat.
That's what John said.
You do.
And for us, it's been a tough day, and I was like, you know what, I got another day of it tomorrow, and it can drag on you, and I know you guys at home feel the same way. And today it would have been easy to just give up, head to my cabin, go have a cocktail or something instead of finishing the night, but we stuck it out, and you get rewarded with a fish. So sometimes that's all it takes, just sticking it out and knowing that if you do that, you will get rewarded. Yeah, some days you're going to get a skunk, and that's part of musky fishing, right?
Yeah, it happens.
It happens, but when you just tough it out, you're rewarded with a fish like that. Awesome memory, awesome fun, great fishing with you guys. Awesome, definitely enjoyed it. Let's go hit our last spot here and see if we can finish this one off strong. We'll be right back.
Awesome.
Today's Little Takes breakdown, I want to dedicate to a guy that has been kind of the OG when it comes to YouTube musky related content. And my buddy Brian Skaife from Angling Anarchy just posted on his own YouTube channel that he's not really taking a break, but he's not going to be posting as regular. And I was so happy for him. It's a lot of work keeping up with this to keep content for you guys. And Brian has really prided himself on having content every Saturday morning. And as life changes, as things change around you, that's not always possible. And Brian said he was going to take a little break. So I just thought that was great. It was such a classy move for him to go on YouTube and say that. So I just really wanted to shout that out publicly, that he's one of the guys that I've looked to for advice. I've talked to a lot about this YouTube journey and about musky fishing in general. So guys, today's Little Tikes breakdown is brought to you by Mr. Brian Skaife, Angling Anarchy. This is a manta, little glide bait. It runs so well, surprisingly doesn't get used a lot, certainly not in our area. I found out about it 12, 14, 15 years ago from some buddies from the States, and I picked up a few, and these were really one of my go-to lures for a long time. I caught my then personal best fish. I caught my first fish on long-legged on a manta. I caught my first, true muskies on Eagle Lake on a manta. And surprisingly, it's just a lure that we've kind of drifted away from, but they're so effective. So when John made the call to start throwing glide baits, because we weren't seeing a lot of fish, and let's face it, glide baits, they move fish and they show you fish, or at least show where fish are being active. The great thing about stuff like glide baits, even some of the topwater stuff, it'll pull fish out that a conventional presentation, be it a bucktail or a diving riser or rubber might not move those fish, but a glide bait or even like a walk the dog top water, the fish are just, they seem to want to check that out, and at least it shows their location to you. So those are always key, and we don't use a lot of glide baits. It's just not a bait that we have a lot of confidence in, and you certainly have to fish them a little slower. And you've heard us talk on the channel about power fishing, and that's something that Dave and I like to do. We just like to move quick, move through spots, and just fish, you know, quick but efficient. All right, you hear us talk about complex structure, and last week on this video right here where I fished with Hunter, we talked about complex structures that hold a lot of different styles of structure. This is similar in that it has a lot of rock and a lot of depth changes around it. Not a lot of weeds on this lake, so not really any weeds per se inside of this piece of structure. But what we're looking at is a south-facing mainlander island with a lot of boulders, and these are boulders that are, you know, 2 to 3, 4 foot around, kind of stacked up along the shore and then underwater. And your first break off of those boulders typically drops down into that 5 to 8 foot range. And here we had a little bit of a shelf coming off that we're in 24 feet of water. That shelf comes out. It's about 8 to 10, 12 feet deep, and it runs right out into the open water, and it has steep drops off of it, spots that I like to look for fish. And then as we kind of move down the shoreline, we had a couple more isolated rock patches. And John actually picks this fish up, and I didn't quite draw it here. I don't have quite enough room to show that it kind of tapers off with some shallower rocks, and he got it in that transition between kind of shallow water around the mainland and these isolated rock patches. But I want to show you the two spots he kind of raised fish. So early on in this pass, we started out over here with the boat, and John was using that big glide bait you see in the video, and he was casting right up into those rocks, and he was really slowly moving that glide bait back, and I seen a fish follow up, and it come right off of those rocks, follow right up to the boat. We had a really good look at it. It was a really nice fish. He continued to use that all the way around this main point that comes off of the mainland. And then as we got into slightly shallower water, knowing that that glide bait that he had, the big one from 705, was going to run really deep, he made the call to switch to a manta in one size bigger than this, in that really bright color, because we're starting to get into low light. And he was casting, we had the boat up over here now, he was casting up into these isolated rock patches. And again, I don't quite show enough here that there's some shelf rocks that run off, and he's casting up into 8 to 10, 12 feet of water. So very similar here, but it's a lot flatter with just isolated boulders. And when he come over top of a couple of those boulders, that fish hit him way out from the boat. Was a nice fish, wasn't huge, was actually a little bit skinny. I was kind of surprised for this time of year. But on a day that we literally only moved a couple fish for 6.5 hours, and then in the last 45 minutes of our night, we had 3 or 4, legit shots at fish moving or getting fish to the boat, and chances in the 8 to come away on that day with a fish. It actually felt really good because we've really struggled. So anytime you get a fish on a tough day like that, it always kind of boosts your morale and makes you feel at least you knew you were doing the right things. Fishing with John and Leanne, this was day 2 of a 3-day stretch of fishing that I had. And conditions looked good, but the fishing was really tough. On the Friday, I managed to pick up a couple fish. Here's that video here. And that day felt really tough, even though we had chances. And then on this day, on the Saturday, we had very few chances, and they all seemed to happen in a very tight bite window, which is something we're seeing. And then on the Sunday, in the next video that I'm going to show you guys, again, it was a really tough day. We only got a couple chances, and you have to capitalize on those chances. So it kind of set up a pattern over that weekend of try and locate fish. Don't be too concerned if you don't catch them on the first pass, and then you can kind of come back to those spots, and that usually will kind of give you the idea of, okay, they are using this location. Maybe we upsize, we downsize, you slightly change your presentation, and that usually will translate into, either another opportunity or a fish in the bag. And knowing what I kind of knew from this weekend, going into the week and when I fished with Hunter, we were able to, again, capitalize on tight bite windows, moving fish at key times on the minor and the major, and then capitalizing, as we came back to them. So that was just key, being on the water and kind of putting that pattern together over the course of, 5, 6, 7 days. So you guys coming up here, sometimes you show up at the beginning of a good pattern, or sometimes you show up at the end, and it's really hard to know how long to stick with those patterns. That's kind of always the $1 million question. Like, do you change completely, or do you just keep doing what you're doing? And in this case, John downsizing the same style of bait, a glide bait, just going something smaller, just proved key for us at least salvaging a fish on this day. And yeah, one fish day is great. Not exactly what we were looking for, but we'll take it, any day of the week. But check out the video right here where John and Chad and I went out and we had just a banger of a day. And it's one of those days where it smiles all around, and it makes these tougher days a little bit easier to bear. And for now, 54 Bus is out of here. We'll catch you guys out on the water later.